Today's topic, creating growth plans for your team. So a little bit about myself. For those that don't know, my name's Dave. I'm the founder of Design Source Media, which is a web agency, and a founder of GSM Talent, which is a staffing agency where we help other agency owners find talent in the Philippines. I've been running my agency for over 14 years now. I currently manage a team of 21, a husband, father of 4 kids. So what does this session cover, right? So before you start, so preparing for your growth plan and examples of growth paths. And so what I'm sharing with you today is examples. Not everyone's growth path, everyone's agency is slightly different. So what I hope to be able to provide for you is to, get some ideas, kind of seeing what we do in our agency and how develop individuals develop our growth plans. So that way you have the tools necessary to create your own. Building the map, talking about how we do one-on-ones, and then examples, real examples of our own team members' growth. And my EA mixed it up this week and had a little bit of fun with the graphics. So we're gonna try something different today, okay? So since we're related to roles, we're gonna gamify this a little bit. And so before you start, what do? Right? Your agency itself needs to be in growth mode, right? It's like, what's the point of creating a growth plan for others if you yourself, your agency isn't growing, right? Where would it grow into? So your growth is part of that will drive additional retention, right? So like I mentioned earlier, for someone that's working for you, or if you've been working for someone else and you're asking, hey, is there a future for me here? Right. So be able to be in that growth mode is very, very important. That's why I talk about, as an agency owner, especially near the beginning, one of your first priorities is to focus on marketing and sales. That will feed the funnel and that will allow you to grow. The next piece is sustainable revenue, right? Growth pays for those promotions, those raises and stuff. I was talking to another agency owner the other day and I asked him, hey, where are you at? Oh, well, I'm solo right now. I have one person I'm talking to, a contractor in New York and another contractor, but nothing really stable. And he's doing everything himself. And then to take that step further, everything's project based. So there's very little reoccurring revenue, very little like contracts, like a 3 month, 6 month, 12-month contracts. So when you don't have any of that or very little, and it's like feast or famine, like, hey, I hope I get 3 projects next month to cover the bills. At that point, it's very, very difficult to create stability and sustainable revenue here. Okay, so that's something that you want to consider. And that's kind of one of the things that the agency you talks about, prioritizing your offer. And that's one of those pieces. You want to prioritize it, but as part of your product, try to build in reoccurring revenue. That's like the holy grail, right? Reoccurring revenue. And when you have that, even in the downturns, you'll survive through the positive cash flow. And of course, while you're at it, build up a rainy day fund, a war chest. Third piece is don't forget about you, yourself, right? What are your own needs, right? Also, can I afford this, right? Can I hand it off? So you want to consider that, it's kind of follow up of refresher of last week's call is about yourself and when should I hire? Not, you don't want to just blow away all your cash right away on useless things, reinvest back in the business. So once you have these three things, then okay, let's figure out the growth paths. So for example, EA. So you start with an executive assistant, right? So the EA is like, okay, well, what can I do? Where can I go? And by the way, any of these roles, they can stay in that role, right? Indefinitely. If that's where they want to stay, and that's what I say, like you can stay there, but do understand that the organization does evolve and does change. But for an EA role, it's a role that won't get, let's say, removed in the future. It's just that understand that every role has its essential pay band. So if you want to be compensated more, then you need to continue to level up essentially. And once you get to a certain level, then it needs a role change. Okay, it might be a senior EA or other roles like that, but ultimately understand that if you're happy where you're at, you're happy with your comp, then it's okay, perfectly fine staying in this role, right? So an EA can, one example could be appointment setter. So now more of a sales role, right? So they're talking to you, working with your DMs. It's kind of along with like what agency you're doing with the authority funnel, working with the DMs, replying to emails, reaching out, right, setting appointments and stuff like that. And then they could become a customer success manager. So a CSM, more like a project, it's similar to a project manager, but for larger projects, you would have both a CSM and a project manager. All right. Anyone know the difference between a CSM, a customer success manager, versus a project manager? Anyone know the difference?
Think
Feel free
so.
if you, yeah, go ahead.
So, customer success manager, he's more client facing,
Hmm.
gonna have that relationship, build that relationship with the client and the company, and then the project manager, more internal, running, helping manage or run the projects.
Okay, yes, very good, and I would say very close. It A project manager doesn't necessarily have to be internal and not client facing. Both the CSM and the project manager can both be client facing. The key difference is that where their priorities lie, right? The CSM is focused on, all right, well, these are the customer goals, objectives. Let's say a client needs to generate 100 new sales through this campaign and or through our different services and even other vendors. And so their priority is the customer. So the customer might say, all right, well, I need to promote this new opening, new storefront. Okay. A CSM might go, okay, well, we offer social media services. We offer paid ads. We can run these campaigns for you. But also on top of that, we know some people that do traditional marketing. We can get you on an ad spot, get you in front of the news stations. So as a CSM, it's not so much just the services that we're offering. So it's not just what we offer, but just focused on the customer. Hey, these are the things that will help you with your new grand opening for your storefront or for your new store. Whereas a project manager, they're focused on, okay, well, there's this campaign, there's this web project, it's very complex. There's a lot of, like, let's say for a web project, like API calls, it's 100 plus pages. There's a lot of contractors and developers working on this, front end, back end developers. And that project manager is in the thick of it, ensuring that that project delivers with quality and on time. Right. And so our CSMs, because we have a mixture for most like the simple projects, we don't need a project manager. But for anything like more complex, like here's a comparison. A simple law firm website, you don't need a project manager. But let's say we're building out an eBay type site, an auction site, a lot more complexity, right? So that's where you will need both a CSM and a project manager for that role or for that project. And then, another option is a chief of staff, right? So it's like more like operations, ensuring the team is moving smoothly. So that's one growth path for an EA. There's many options, but as you're talking to your EA and you're thinking about your own EA, this is just one example. So here's another example, video editor. So you got your video editor, and then they could be a motion graphics so specialist. So they're focused more on the animations side of things. So it's a lot more work on the editing side, or they could be a creative strategist, or they could be head of productions, right? So that's just one path for a video editor. And in between, like for each, it could be they start off with maybe a junior editor, just a video editor, associate level, and they could be a senior editor. So in each of these roles, there could be a regular or a senior role of that title. Okay. Graphic designer. So you start with a graphic designer. They could be a web designer, and they could go into digital illustrator or art director, right? They could, even like in the past slide, like creative director, that could be an option too. And another one that is not showing here, it could be a UX UI designer from a web perspective, right? Anyone know the difference between a graphic designer and a web designer?
Dude, I feel like the graphic designer would like is more focused on styles of, I mean, it could be on videos, it could be on like branding, photos, things like that, kind of getting the whole vibe down. And then the web designer, I feel like, is specifically for the websites. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think of it this way, from a workload standpoint, for a graphic designer, I would have the graphic designer do social media posts, flyers, banners, right? These small creatives. Where a web designer, they're still designing and for websites, but also they have a good understanding of also the front end code. So that might be JavaScript or HTML or CSS. So they know a bit of coding, so they know what are the limitations or how far they can push the limit on a website. So that's what makes a good web designer. So that's one of the paths. And then social media manager, right? SMM. So we got social media manager. They could be an ad specialist, and then they could be a community manager, and then they could be a brand manager, right? And sometimes, like for example, a community manager, you don't have to go through an ad specialist. You can go from social media manager straight to a community manager too. Okay. So this is just one example, of growth path. Make sense? Following so far? Okay. And so just imagine, right now let's talk about, designing that map. What I would do is think about your 12-month, picture. Like where is your agency at now? And where do you want to take your agency to? Okay. And I would say aim for the stars and you'll reach the moon, right? So just create a version and then you can start working towards that. Now, a lot of the roles, so I would say, okay, create two things. Create one, your current org chart, okay? So your structure. And then number two, create an org chart that you would like to get to in 12 months from now and put their pictures in there. And chances are it's going to be a lot of your pictures. Your face is going to show up in a lot of these spots. All right. And that's okay because the whole point of it is you visually can see now the full org chart 12 months from now. And then you can start strategically planning like, okay, well, I want to remove my face off of this, right? I want to put someone else's face in there, right? But also you can share that with your current team. Say, hey, look, this is where we're at today. This is where if 12 months from now, these are the new roles that we want. And unfortunately, I'm in all these like a bunch of these slots right now. And I just want to share with the team, this is what it looks like. And during our conversations, which I'll talk about in a later slide right now, in a minute, I would like to hear where you want to go. Okay. So that's part of, but you need to have the map. This is the map. So three buckets for promotion. So this is what I look for when I'm like promoting. Number one, like you want that position, you want that senior position, you want to be the creative director, right? You want the CEO, you want the president position. Great. Do you have the skills for it? Right. So can they handle that? Right. But another thing too, it's like building autonomy. Do they have the traits where they take, part of the autonomy is ownership. So can they take ownership of their current role? Have they proven themselves in that and they have full autonomy to their current role? And then as they're transitioning to this new role, do they have ownership of this new role and ultimately giving the individual full autonomy where they can lead an army, just like in this picture? Can they lead, right? And then the impact. So the impact is really, and you could, maybe in other words would be better as coaching or mentorship. Is the individual able to develop their protege to fill in their old role, their current role? And here's the deal, right? Like if you want this creative director role and you are currently the senior social media manager, Well, I would love to offer you this creative director role. You have the skills and you can lead, but who's going to fill in your current role? If no one can fill in your current role, I don't want you to do two roles. That's two roles, it's just too much. So until you find a protege and you develop that individual to meet your expectations and even exceed it, then you're eligible for this role 100%. So that these are some of the things to develop. And it's no different for you, right? Like right now, your original org chart, your map is you, right? You have to develop your team. You have to develop your proteges. So now quarterly one-on-ones. Now, right now, because I have like 21 people, it's very difficult to do monthly one-on-ones. So that's why I say quarterly one-on-ones. But for those that have a smaller team, less than 20 plus, you can probably get away with monthly. And even for certain individuals, it might be weekly. Okay. And why is that important? Is a thing called feedback loop. You want to shorten and speed up the feedback loop as quickly as possible. So that way the individual improve and you understand how each individual works, okay, in a shorter time frame. If it takes you 3 months to give feedback to let someone know, like, hey, you're doing well in this area or you're not doing well in this area, or understanding where they want to go, 3 months is too long. Okay. So in our one-on-ones, these are the things we talk about. I start with something personal, like, hey, how are the kids doing? Oh, how was your trip? Or are you ready, for your big wedding, right? So there's some like personal stuff we talk about. And then work, right? How are you doing in work? What are you, is there anything you're struggling with? Do you have any questions, right? Any challenges? And then performance. I would ask, what do you think, how do you think you're performing? Right? If you had to rate yourself, if you had to grade yourself, 1 out of 10. So, or one, 1 to 10. And then, we talk about that and I provide feedback like, hey, if you work on this or these things, it will, that's why I would like to see. So it's about setting expectations. And then finally, the future, like, okay, where do you want to go? Right? You've been working here for 3 months now. You've been working here for 6 months now. You've interacted with our clients, our vendors, our own team members. Like, what do you think? Right? Are you happy? Are you happy doing what you're doing? Or would you like a career shift? Right? Would you like to try a different role? Or are you just in general not happy here and would like to exit, which is okay. Really, it's okay. Let's come up with a plan to make that transition smooth. So we're not, our agency's not in chaos and you're not stressing out about looking for another job, right? Let's make it a win-win, right? So that's, these are some of the conversations we talk about in the future. And then finally, the action items. So through these conversations, we talk about action. And so every point of these actually ultimately kind of drive into their future, right? So I'll give you some scenarios. Personal goals. I would like to buy a house. Okay, great. You want to buy a house, right? And we talk about, okay, well, like what kind of house are you looking for? Do you have, do you have money saved up? What's your game plan? Sometimes we get really personal and it's up to the individual, right? If they're open to sharing or not. And then I connect the personal stuff, their personal goals on work and performance if possible. So an easy one is, let's say I'm talking to a salesperson. So, all right, well, you want to buy a house and that house is 500K and your monthly payments will be that. Well, based on that, how many projects do we need to close to meet that, to have positive cash flow in your own personal finances to be able to afford a 500K house, right? So that's why when I'm having conversations with my team, when I'm doing one-on-ones, it's mentorship, it's coaching, right? So it's important that everyone here has their own ducks in a row, right? Before you get to this point, right? But it helps. It helps a lot once you have your stuff in order. But even if you don't, right? Just try your best to get a really good understanding of each of your team members. And sometimes you have individuals that just honestly, they just don't know. They don't know, like, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And so that's where the guidance comes in It's like, hey, I noticed that you're really good at this. I noticed that, you catch on to these things really well. And I feel as your leader, as your mentor, that this would be a really good role for you. And a lot of times is that it's like, okay, do people figure out what they like and then they start doing more of it? Or do they start off with, oh wow, I'm really good at this, and then they really like that thing? And it's usually the second part. It's usually like, man, I am so damn good at this. Like I start enjoying doing this, right? And not every single thing, but usually that's the case. Like when you're really good at certain things, it's usually pretty fun. But as long as it's challenging too, right? If you're really good, and so good at it, you're like, oh yeah, this is boring now. This is repetitive. It's like I can do this with my eyes closed. And you just kind of get bored, right? I'm sure you've all experienced it, right? Like, oh, this is the 1,000th video that I've edited, or the hundred, the 1,000 meeting sales call that I've done. Like, this is just a recording that I'm playing now in my head. So it's not challenging anymore. So it's as a mentor, it's that balance of not pushing your team member too far where they burn out, but challenging them enough where it's still interesting. They see the path and they see the growth in themselves, and this is the next step. I mean, if anyone plays video games, that's how they work. Really. I mean, think about it, right? Any game that's entertaining and really engaging, you want to keep going back to it. There's that balance, that sweet, spot, right? So here's some real examples of our own team members of their growth paths. So we have Amy, currently the director of ops. All right. She started off as my EA. She then became a designer, then a project manager, and then director of ops. Right? She's currently been here for 9 years, and she'll be here for 10 years next year. So, Zina, customer success manager, started off as technically an intern, really. She started off as an intern. So like right around the time like she was about to graduate. She started here, graphic and web designer, then became a lead designer, project manager, and then now CSM. Our head of the admin team. So started off as an EA, a talent acquisition partner, a trainer, and now head of admin. And one more, Camille, HR, talent associate, started as an EA intern. Okay. A little background. She came here with zero experience doing remote work, zero experience. And she is a career shifter. Well, actually, yes, career shifter, but also a mother. So she was raising her children and she's like, hey, I want to get back into the workforce and I'm willing to become an intern to learn the ropes. Can you give me the opportunity to do that? And so we gave her the opportunity. She went through our brutal onboarding process. I straight up torture her for 3 months straight. Okay. I think she still has PTSD from that. And then after that, she became, the HR side and then talent and HR associate. Okay. So that's her path. And there's so much more, so much growth for her. And I just saw the chat here. Sadi said, I have a question regarding videographer growth path. I want to hire an intern. Do you pay your interns? What's their path? I'd like to more about this. Okay. So do we pay our intern? Yes, absolutely. We usually pay about half the amount of a full staffer, and the interns do not get benefits. But here's the key focus though, right? It's important for everyone to understand is that interns, they're here to learn. Do not expect the interns to work like a full-time, professional. Okay. So what that means from what we do our best to provide as much value from their education perspective because they're going through school. They need this for their credit hours. They're already paying for their credit hours, right? To through that co-op or internship program. And so we want to ensure all of our interns get the most experience. And so they can get out of this internship feeling like, yes, I have a really good idea of this, what it's like to work in an agency. Do I want to be doing that in the future? But also, I really want to work at this agency, right? So that's what we focus on. But don't get me wrong, we absolutely challenge our interns. Like some of our interns perform as well as our full-time hires, right? But again, our priorities are still pushing for education, mentorship, full guidance, right? If the intern is not ready to, like, let's say, do a certain task or a certain project, we would not throw them into it themselves. They would always have a full-time hire to support the intern. And another thing is we're very flexible with our interns because they have school, they have other obligations and other programs. And their path, yeah, their path is just like, in this diagram here, start off with an intern. And then what we try to do is there's different types of interns based on their major, right? So if they're a marketing major, obviously they'll start on the marketing side. If they're in HR, they'll start on the staffing, or if they're in management, or, they're going for their business degree, then maybe they'll be an EA, right? So they get more exposure. But also, when possible, we try to get the intern to get exposure to other divisions, other departments in our organization, so they can get a full picture of what it feels like in different departments, right? It's work, hands on the job training, right? And let's see and one thing I want to add, right? Don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, wow, interns, cheap labor, right? Half the cost. No, 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 no. It's far from cheap. It's actually your interns will cost you, okay? Mark my words, will cost you not just financials, but will cost you more as an agency as a whole to bring on an intern than a full-time hire, okay? Because your interns need a lot of handholding and it will suck up all your time. And your rate is the most expensive. Everyone's billable rate right now, I would say set yourself at bare minimum of $150 an hour, okay? And just keep upping it. So that means if your hourly rate is $150 an hour and your intern is sucking up 10 hours a week, right? That's a lot, right? That's $1,500 right there a week that your intern is costing you. You could be selling, you could be closing deals, but no, you're spending 10 hours training your intern. So very expensive. Okay. And so Alexandra said, what do you mean brutal? What you give a lot of work? Okay. So our onboarding process is 90 days long. Our interns and our full hires, everyone goes through the same onboarding process, the same type of training. The interns, though, because they have no work experience, we're providing a lot of feedback. So it's good feedback, it's bad feedback, right? It's just like all sorts of critical feedback, and we move really, really quickly. Our feedback loop is not 24 hours. Our feedback loop is within like 4 hours. So we have a morning call and a call later. They also have a buddy that we're providing, and then we're trying to gauge. And this applies not just to interns but others too. We're gauging where they're at and how much we can push the individual. Similar to like if you joined boot camp right now, like military boot camp, right? They break you and then they rebuild you, right? That's kind of how our training is. So for the unfortunate souls that are reporting to me, I go even further because like I have limited time. So I go in and I'm like, okay, you want to be an EA or you're my EA, and they're let's say they're making mistakes. I mean, I'm not like screaming at them or chewing them out. I'm trying to get them to think, okay, well, I want you to think of it this way. If you were in my position, how would you handle that? Right? Reply to this email. Let's say, would you talk to your own friend like that? Right? And so like every single day they're getting this critical feedback. It sucks. And I let them know. Like in the very, very beginning, before they join, I let them know this is one of the hardest things you'll do in your life. Okay. Other than maybe raising kids. But for those that are not parents, this will be one of the hardest things. Like you think school was hard, that will be a joke. All right. That will be a joke. Because what we'll be doing every single day is I'm giving you feedback. It's not that I don't like you. Don't worry, your job is safe. I'm not going to terminate you, right? But I need you to be strong so we can get through this. And every day I'm providing critical feedback. I expect improvements, expect changes, and they're pushing through it. And the ones that do survive don't even recognize themselves after the program. Okay. Not something I'm proud of, but they later t told me like, yeah, in the beginning, I was like, there are times where I was crying, like I was in tears. But it's like it's like you haven't been to the gym and now you're going to the gym. And instead of going to the gym 1 day a week, we just threw you into a 5 day program and we ripped away all your snacks, no cakes, no sweets, and it's pure focus on here's your new diet program, here's your exercise regimen. We'll see you at the gym every single day, and you're training once in the once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and you're dying at the end of the day. That's what it feels like with our when I say brutal. So yeah, Camille, definitely PTSD, right? But then but then afterwards, they're so free. I don't mind. I don't need to monitor. I don't need to let Camille know or my team know. Like, hey, I need you to do this, this. I just say, this needs to be accomplished. We have a problem here. How do you think we can solve this? Our team, Camille, will take it from there, right? Because through the training, they're gonna have flashbacks of like, what would David do? What would David say? It's already pre-programmed, right? But that's kind of why I say it's like boot camp, because we're rewiring what they've learned in the past, breaking all old habits. The next question is, could you merge client manager and project manager? Yeah, absolutely. Our CSMs are like that. Our CSMs focus, yes, on the clients, but they also have morning calls. We call them huddles or yeah, huddles calls in the morning with the dev team, with the design team, with the production team and the customer success team, which is our support team. So our CSMs are having morning calls like that with the team so they understand and they're updating our project management system. Yep. And yes, good. Yeah, you pay your interns. And when is a good time? So that's a great question. When you have full-time hires to support them, I would not, as a business owner, be the direct contact for an intern when you can avoid it because your time is just too valuable. So for example, when you have, let's say, a role, like let's say you have an EA and you have some of the technical roles. So be it if you're a video agency, video editors and shooters, or if you're a social media agency, you have social media managers, right? You have a base team where you're taking care, you're still doing sales and you have an EA helping you, but you're also the operations, you have a system in place and you have the individuals to run that system, then bring on an intern. But if you bring on an intern thinking, oh, you know what? We have a void here. We don't have a video editor. I'm gonna bring on an intern. Oh, they're going to school for video production. They're gonna do great, right? No. You're going to create chaos in your own agency. All right. So do not recommend. Right? You can try it, come back and report, right? And let me know how it goes, 6 months from now, right? And you're gonna and 9 times out of 10, you're gonna say to me, Dave, you're right. I shouldn't have done that, right? Because why do I know that? Because this guy right here, I did it. I tried to do it, all right? I was young and dumb, all right? I was like, oh yeah, interns. Let's just bring on a bunch of interns. Nah, don't do it. Just don't do it. And should you do huddles with your team every day? I do. I used to when the team was smaller. Now that we have team leads, our team leads do that. And it sets the cadence. There's a few more things that we do that sets the cadence every single day. Like one example is every team member, they share the top 3 things that they're working on, they post it in Slack and we have our meeting notes. And then at the end of the day, we have a full report via email to everyone in the company of all the things going on in the organization. But that's when you get bigger. But yeah, absolutely. To answer your question, Kayla, do you do team huddles? Yeah, I do. Let's see. Should you hire a CSM as a video and ads agency? Yeah, absolutely. CSMs will apply for all the agencies because your CSMs, will allow you to step away from the operations. So kind of give you an idea. Like right now, I used to do a lot of the sales calls, and I'm doing less and less of it now because we are developing our sales team to do the sales calls. But before that, I was also doing a lot of the operations. And in order for me to step away from the operations, I needed someone to take the lead on, the moment. So think of it this way. I close the sale. So I have a conversation with the prospect, they become a customer. And at that point, now I'm doing the work, right? And even if I'm like not coding or not designing, I'm still managing it. And so it sucks up all my time in sales, right? And marketing. So let's say I'm talking to John, our new customer. I would let John know, hey, and sometimes our CSMs would join the sales calls, not all the time. But afterwards, I would say, all right, John, it would be, let's say it's Zaina. Zaina is your new CSM. She will be taking care of this project from start all the way to finish. And then I'm moving forward. Just to let you know, John, don't worry. I am still here. You can still message me. But also, I don't want to slow down the project. I don't want to be the bottleneck, right? Zaina, our CSM, is freaking on top of it. You know what our CSMs do? Like Zaina, every Friday, full update, full report to every single active project. So let's say for the video ads agency, let's say you're doing videos every week, right? And on Friday, your CSM is providing your customer. These are all the videos we completed. These are the videos that we need your input on. These are the videos that's been posted and the impact and the success of that. Imagine one email, your client getting that amazing email, right? Now, imagine you doing it. Hell no, right? You don't have time? No way. That's insane, right? That's why you have a CSM dedicated to that. And that's part of customer experience, right? So if I was running a video agency and I was doing that versus your agency and our quality is the same, right? Which customer would be happier, right? Is that simple fact of I have someone on the team and you know what, that customer, a lot of times the customer is not going to remember to send out this support email or call this company number. They're not going to do that. It's relational, right? They're going to talk to the person that they're mostly interacting with. Well, in the beginning it's you, but over time it will be your CSMs, and your CSMs are focused on taking care of your customers, right? So yeah, definitely everyone to a certain, like in the beginning it's an EA. That's why that growth path makes a lot of sense for an EA. EA will eventually and really can be really good, be in a really good position to be that CSM, because in the beginning your EA, they know everything about your business, everything about you. They have access to your emails, your calendars, your accounting, your credit cards. That's what my EA has access to. And then all the confidential information. So EA has full context. And so now moving them into a CSM. If you don't have an EA, I would say EA first because they're freeing up your time being billed at $150 or more an hour, right? They're freeing up your time. And then as you build your EA up, they can move into the CSM role. Right? Because there's a lot of complexity, especially if you're a type of agency that does a lot of custom work. Like for us, it would be like web projects, really custom web projects. Then you need a lot more training for your CSM. And then let's see, the other question is, do you make your client manager manage ad metrics reporting with the client or a UVA or your VA in a team of five? So in a team of five, your CSM can most likely pull the data. Eventually, as you scale, you don't want your CSM's time sucked up on the technical stuff. All right. You want your CSMs to be able to rely on the technical team. So when it comes to the metrics or the ads, it might be, hey, social media manager, give me the stats on that. Or the media buyer, give me the stats on our paid ads. So as a CSM, I can put together all of this data to report to our customer. So you have a workflow, you have a process that streamlines that. But in the beginning, yeah, it's your CSM. It could be your EA could be helping a CSM, or if it's just if it's a team of five, you might not have all the resources. But also at the same time, you don't have a lot of customers, right? And so that's okay. Your CSM can handle that. But understand that the more different types of responsibilities you put on a CSM, the longer it takes you to train that CSM to be fully efficient. Let's see. Brendan said, our trust is built differently. Do you feel an EA can have impact without having access to credit cards and sensitive info? I'll give you an example. I mean, you all use AI right now, right? We all use ChatGPT and Gemini. What happens if you say to Gemini or ChatGPT, pasta? Right? Gemini is going to be like, wait, okay, you want definition of pasta? Well, no, no, no. I want the recipe. I'm making pasta. Oh, okay. So what I mean by this is the less you trust an individual, the less things that you basically delegate or let go of, the harder it will be not only for your EA, but for yourself too. Okay. Now I get you, right? Like, okay, wow, there's like, especially like financials and all these like confidential information. It's hard to let go. And what if they, do something bad with it, right? Well, that's the difficult part is that number one, you know, I can't tell you that, okay, well, the person that you're going to bring on isn't going to necessarily scam you or something that will do something like not morally right or ethical, right? But but what I would say is have that's why it's important to spend time with your team and not blindly just delegate and throw things at the person. Really understand and get to know the person. And even though they might be 8,000 miles away on the other side of the world, right? You can still get to know that person. And then number two, checks and balances, right? Don't just like, yeah, in the beginning it's tough, right? You have one person. But even like, let's say, for example, for a credit card, right? Well, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? There's fraudulent activity. They start blowing things on the credit card. Well, you report to the credit card agency like, hey, this is fraudulent activity. I did not spend that. And you can see that the credit card where they're buying it from is not even from your location. It's from somewhere else in different parts of the world even. Even if the credit card company didn't flag it, right? Chances are the credit card company would immediately flag it anyways, right? So that's one thing. I'm not too stressed about the credit card stuff. The other confidential or sensitive info, like what is there that's really sensitive, right? Brandon, can you give me an example since you asked the question? What are some of the things that you're thinking about that is pretty sensitive that you may feel?
So I don't have a specific example. I just, that's just initially where my mind went when you brought that up. You said they have access to your sensitive credit card information and you said all other information to your business. So I'm thinking, an executive assistant, in order for them to be effective, they essentially have to be like your right arm or your left arm and know it just as much as you do. So, I mean, if we want to throw hypotheticals out there, sometimes is maybe if it's not my sensitive information, maybe it's the client's sensitive information, right? And it's how do you safeguard that? Of course, sensitive business, like the most sensitive information you're not gonna have access to, but client payment information, client accounts, things of that nature. So mostly financial, I guess, but you answered the question very well.
Yeah. Think about even I'm trying to think like even for Apple, like let's say your client is Apple, right? And they're about to launch a new iPhone and you're part of the marketing campaign for it. And like if this gets leaked, you're gonna get sued out the wazoo, right? By the Apple legal team, right? So there's certain levels of risks that you're taking based on the client. But if it's a small business and a small bit gets leaked, it sucks, but it doesn't suck as much as, leaking that out. So there's a few
Well, here,
things that
I have an example of like, you
yeah.
said access to your email. So the
Mhm.
access to see your emails or access to send emails on your behalf from
Both.
your work email. Right.
So
So
they don't have access to my login to my Google account, but in Google, there's the ability to delegate. So they have their own Google account and I delegate access to that. And there's a difference to that. Whenever I delegate, let's say my EA Marian, when she emails, she can email on behalf of me, but in the email on my side, it shows that Marian, my EA, emailed on behalf of me. Okay. So I
Okay.
know that. And also one thing in the beginning is like, don't just like let your EA like here, go ahead, just email on my behalf. No, don't do that. That's like just that's not delegating. That's abdicating your work. You want to ask the EA to draft first. Like just respond on my behalf, but save it as draft and just let me know and I'll review it and then go ahead and send it. Right. And also you'll get to the point. The scary part is the switch from, okay, now we've done a few of these emails. Moving forward, you can these types of emails, you can just go ahead and respond. Now, understand that there will be mistakes. It's okay, not the end of the world. Okay. So another thing to think about is like 50%, 60% done by somebody else is better than 100% done by you.
I 100% agree, and I see what you're saying here. You got to keep training wheels on and make sure that the
Hmm.
onboarding process and the
Yeah.
training is done properly and it's phased properly. But I do
Yep.
agree. I think that the EA for my business will be
Yeah.
a force multiplier, because it allows you
Yeah,
to build
absolutely.
things up.
And here's the other advantage. So this is the development and the training and the relationship side, right? Then you have legal protection. So number one, you want to have your NDAs, right? Non-competes and non-disclosures, right? And then the second thing is like if you work with, let's say, our staffing company, what we do because we bring people on under full-time hire and we have an entity in the Philippines, if they break NDA, if they break any laws, we can directly sue them. We can directly prosecute, all right, through the Philippines legal system. So versus you going online, let's say online jobs or Upwork and say, all right, well, I'm just going to hire a contractor and then they just ghost you, right? Because for us, we have full information about where they live, all the contact details, like equivalent to their social security number, everything, right?
Okay.
And then we would send our legal team. We wouldn't want to do that. That would be like the absolute worst case scenario. But if we
But it's
have to,
legitimate in
there's
the
that.
way that that it's legitimate for them. It's tangible. It's real, and where they are, and it's enforceable. So no, I hear
Yeah,
that. And that's good.
yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm saying is like you don't necessarily have to blindly trust someone. You build that trust through relationships and time and and effort, but then the other part is you still need to set that boundary through contracts and the legal system. And that's kind of having the mixture of both is important.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Dave.
Yeah, no problem. So Sadi said, would it be okay to hire part-time EA then move to full-time and hire them as contractor? Okay, so that I would say it's not a bad idea, but I want you to put yourself in the position of that part-time EA, right? That part-time EA. So there's certain scenarios that may work well. It might be, oh, well, I'm just starting, I'm a career shifter, I just need a few hours. But at the same time, why are they part-time in the first place? Right? So they might have another opportunity. They might have other obligations. So you spend 3 months, you spend 6 months with this individual as a part-timer, and now you're like, oh man, I really need you to be full-time. I'm like, I'm sorry, I signed up for a part-time because I have obligations with my family or my kids or my other things. I have a second job, a third job. I'm running another business. I have a side hustle. Well, there goes your 6 month training. You can't even bring them on full-time anymore. You just can't. Now, now don't get me wrong, I've had experiences where like one of our developers, I brought him on as a contractor. They really like working with us and they're like, hey, I'm tired of being a contractor. I'm tired of chasing projects, doing sales and everything else. I just want to code. I want to work for you full time. Do you have any opportunity? And so we brought him on full time. So that could happen, absolutely. But I would say it's if you're going from that transition, if like let's say you need some help now, not so much an EA, but like a video editor would be a better example, and you don't have enough work for a full-time video editor, you're better off hiring a contractor or even partnering up with another, let's say, agency that specializes in video. And just, yeah, you're paying a premium there to get you through this period and to vet your product, your offer essentially. And you're like, okay, I got some traction now. And then you can start bringing on a full-time hire. Okay. To now, then what happens is when you bring your full-time hire, your contractor or the agency partner you've been working with, they become your backup. They become your overflow, right? Just in case your full-time hire doesn't work out, you can always fall back to the contractor or fall back to the agency and pay a premium for that. And so that's what I would recommend.
That you answered my question, Dave.
Mhm. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I love the questions. So feel free, ask away. I know we're a little over time now, but does anyone have any other questions before I go? And I have a question.
Where can we book a call with you to talk about an EA?
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's just go to our agency site, and on the bottom there's a calendar and you can book a call there. And one of our recruiters will also help you too.
Okay.
I know, right? Right, you need a raise. Right, Mari's like, yeah, I love that. So I want you to think about like, where do you see, think about your best hires right now on your team, right? And where do you see them 12 months from now? Right. So that's what one of the things I want to leave you with. And yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm obviously agency you can always DM me. And if there's anything you would like me to cover, similar to topics like this, team building, certain roles you want more details on, like our onboarding, stuff like that, feel free, let me know and happy to share. All right. Well, take care. Stay warm for those that are in like this freezing weather right now, So take care. I'll talk to you all later. All right. Bye-bye.